Welcome back, dear dreamers and faithful hearts, to my channel, a place where timeless stories come alive beneath the stars. Tonight, we step into the heart of God's dwelling, a story of holiness, closeness, and a people learning how to walk with Him. So snuggle in, take a deep breath, and let your heart journey into a sacred space where mercy and meaning meet. This is Leviticus, the story of drawing near. After the great rescue from Egypt, after the sea had opened wide and freedom had begun to take its first steps, God's people found themselves standing in a quiet place between what had been and what was yet to come. They were no longer slaves. Their chains were gone, but their hearts were still learning how to live in freedom. So God came close again, not with crashing waves that split the sea, not with thunder or fire blazing from the mountain, but in a gentler way, filled with patience and care. From a tent, a sacred tent placed right in the very center of the camp, God chose to speak. It was called the tent of meeting, a place where heaven leaned toward earth, where the presence of God rested among His people. And from there, God spoke. "Moses," the Lord said, His voice steady and kind, "come near." God was not distant. He was not silent. He was not hidden away. He desired to dwell among His people, to walk with them, to teach them how to live day by day in His presence. God began by speaking of offerings, not because He needed anything for the earth and everything in it already belonged to Him, but because giving shaped grateful hearts and taught His people how to come to Him with trust. Some offerings were brought with joy and thanksgiving, full of praise and celebration. Some were brought with humility and sorrow, carried by hearts seeking forgiveness. And some were brought simply to say, "God, we belong to You." Each offering told a story, that forgiveness was possible, that gratitude mattered, and that God welcomed His people just as they were. Through these gifts, God was teaching them something important, that worship was not about fear or obligation, but about relationship, closeness, and love. Then God chose priests, Aaron and his sons, to serve as helpers and guides among the people. They were not chosen because they were perfect. They were chosen to remind the people that God Himself made a way for them to come close. The priests wore special garments, carefully made and beautifully woven, each thread filled with meaning and purpose. Not to lift them above others, but to show that serving God was a sacred joy and a holy responsibility. When they stood before the Lord, they stood on behalf of the people, whispering prayers, offering sacrifices, and carrying the hopes of the community into God's presence. God also taught them about what was clean and unclean, not to shame anyone, not to burden life with fear or confusion, but to teach care for bodies, care for homes, care for one another, and care for the life God had given them. He was shaping a community where life could grow strong and healthy, where compassion and wisdom guided daily living. God taught them when to rest, how to respond to sickness, how to protect the vulnerable, and how to live with kindness and justice. Again and again, His gentle voice reminded them, "Be holy, because I am holy." Holiness did not mean being cold or distant. It did not mean withdrawing from life. It meant being set apart for love. It meant choosing honesty over harm, compassion over cruelty, justice over selfishness. It meant loving neighbors, welcoming strangers, and caring for the poor and forgotten. God wanted their everyday lives, their meals, their work, their rest, and their relationships to reflect His goodness and grace. Then God spoke of a very special day, a quiet day, a holy day, the Day of Atonement. Once each year, the entire community gathered in stillness and reflection. On that day, God reminded them that their mistakes did not define them. Mercy did. Sins were forgiven. Hearts were cleansed. Hope was renewed. It was as if God Himself whispered to them, "You are not forgotten. You are not rejected. You are forgiven." God also gave His people festivals, joyful days woven into the rhythm of the year, days to celebrate and rejoice, days to rest and breathe, days to remember all that the Lord had done. Families gathered together, meals were shared, stories were told again and again. Parents would look at their children and say, "This is what the Lord has done for us." Laughter echoed through the camp. Songs rose into the sky. God wanted joy to be part of worship just as much as reverence and obedience. Through all these teachings, God's heart was clear and steady. I am holy, but I am also near. I care how you live because I love you. Walk with me, trust me, let me shape your lives with goodness. Leviticus was never meant to be a book of heavy rules. It was a love story. A holy God choosing to live among His people, guiding them gently, patiently, and faithfully. A God who cared about every detail of their lives, from the greatest celebrations to the quiet moments of repentance and return. And though these words were spoken long ago, their message still whispers today. God desires closeness. God offers forgiveness. God invites His people to live lives filled with purpose and peace. He is holy. He is loving. And He still says, softly and patiently, "Come closer." And so, dear dreamers, we come to the end of this sacred journey, a story not of distant rules, but of a holy God who chose to dwell among His people, a God who taught them how to draw near, how to walk in love, and how to live lives shaped by mercy. Though the people struggled and sometimes forgot, God remained faithful. His presence never left the center of the camp, and His invitation never changed. Even now, His voice still whispers that forgiveness is real, closeness is possible, and holiness begins with love. Thank you for listening, dear hearts, and for sharing this quiet moment with me beneath the stars. As you rest tonight, may you remember the God who invited His people to come near is still watching over you, still guiding you with patience and care. Join me next time as we continue the journey and turn the page to the book of Numbers, a story of the wilderness road, of counted steps and wandering hearts, where faith is tested, trust is refined, and God remains faithful even when the way feels long. There we will walk with a people, learning to trust God day by day, discovering that even in the desert, He leads with purpose and promise. Until then, may your dreams be peaceful, your heart be steady, and your nights be wrapped in the gentle presence of God's enduring love. Good night, dear dreamers, and may grace guide your sleep.